When I first moved into the neighborhood, I thought I'd found paradise. A quiet cul-de-sac, neat lawns, and a sparkling blue lake that stretched behind a line of maple trees. It wasn't a huge lake, but it was beautiful, calm, clean, and full of life. Every morning, I'd stand on my back deck with a cup of coffee and watch the sunlight shimmer across the water. The real estate agent had called it community access, and that phrase had sounded nice enough at the time. But I had no idea that the so-called community behind that access was run by a handful of people who thought they ruled the world, the Homeowners Association. At first, everything seemed fine. I followed the rules, kept my lawn trimmed, paid my dues on time, and waved politely to neighbors. The HOA sent out newsletters about upcoming meetings and approved paint colors for house exteriors. I wasn't interested in their politics, so I kept to myself. But peace doesn't last long when power-hungry people need something to control. The first sign of trouble came one spring afternoon. I'd taken a folding chair and a fishing rod down to the edge of the lake, just a few feet behind my yard. Within minutes, I heard the sound of someone clearing their throat behind me. When I turned, I saw a woman in a sun visor and clipboard, the HOA president, Mrs. Tanner. She didn't greet me, didn't ask how I was doing. She simply pointed to a laminated sign staked into the ground that read, HOA Access, Members Only. I almost laughed. I was a member, wasn't I? I paid the fees. I lived here. But when I tried to explain that, she said the HOA board had exclusive control over the lakefront and that fishing was not permitted without HOA approval. Then she took a picture of me, as if I were some kind of criminal, and walked away without another word. That was my introduction to how things really worked in this neighborhood. After that, little things began happening. A warning letter for leaving my garbage cans out too long. Another for having unapproved patio furniture. Each one came with a fine attached, $20 here, $50 there. It was clear they were trying to send a message, fall in line, or we'll make your life miserable. But the thing about me is, I don't like being bullied. Especially not by people who think they're untouchable. So I started asking questions about this so-called community lake. I wanted to know who actually owned it. Not managed, not maintained, owned. I went through HOA meeting minutes, public zoning maps, and old developer documents. Strangely, I couldn't find a single record showing that the HOA held title to the lake or the land around it. That didn't sit right with me. Curiosity turned into research. Research turned into discovery. And discovery turned into opportunity. Down at the county records office, I spent hours flipping through property deeds. Finally, I found something the HOA clearly hadn't bothered to check. The lake wasn't owned by anyone in the HOA. It was still registered to the original development company that built the neighborhood decades ago. The company had gone bankrupt, and the lake parcel had been left in legal limbo, technically available for private purchase. The entire community had spent years paying maintenance fees for land the HOA didn't even own. That realization lit a fire in me. Not out of spite, but out of sheer disbelief. They'd spent years policing everyone, acting like gatekeepers, when legally, they had no right to any of it. So I did what any rational person would do, I bought the lake. It took a few weeks of paperwork, a call to the state land office, and a small legal process to reclaim the parcel. But in the end, it was done. The deed arrived in the mail, clean and stamped. Every inch of the water, the surrounding soil, and the only pathway leading to the lake was officially mine. For a few weeks, I didn't tell anyone. I simply enjoyed the quiet satisfaction of knowing something they didn't. I'd sit by the water in the evenings, just watching the ducks paddle by. That peace lasted about a month before the storm hit. One morning, I went down to the water with a cooler and a lawn chair, ready to relax. Within minutes, Mrs. Tanner showed up again, this time with 2 other board members. They stood on the path, arms folded, demanding to know what I was doing. I simply smiled, nodded, and went back to my book. They didn't like that. That afternoon, I received a violation notice from the HOA stating that I was trespassing on community property. The fine was laughable, $100 for unauthorized use of common land. I ignored it. 2 days later, another letter came. This one threatened further action and legal intervention. It ended with a line that read, "Failure to comply will result in involvement of law enforcement." I remember chuckling when I read it. If they wanted to involve the law, then so be it. A few mornings later, I was sitting by the lake again when I noticed flashing blue and red lights coming down the path. The HOA president stood proudly beside the police car, talking animatedly to the officers. They approached me cautiously, explaining that they'd received a report of trespassing. I reached into my bag and handed them a folder. Inside was the property deed, the parcel map, and the county transfer record. I could see the shift in their expressions as they read it. One of them turned toward the HOA president and said something quietly. Her face drained of color. After a few minutes, the officers apologized for the misunderstanding and left. Mrs. Tanner stood frozen, her clipboard trembling in her hand. She didn't say a word as I calmly folded my chair and walked back to my house. That day marked the turning point. By the next HOA meeting, chaos had erupted. Word spread quickly that I owned the lake. Some residents were furious, others confused, but many found it hilarious. People who'd been fined or bullied by the board for years suddenly had questions. The HOA tried to claim that my purchase was invalid, but the county's legal office confirmed it. Everything was legitimate. Then came the real blow. The HOA realized that without lake access, they couldn't maintain their exclusive amenities clause, the one they used to justify high community fees. Their budget collapsed overnight. For the first time, I wasn't the one on the defensive. They were. A week later, I put up a few signs along the water's edge: private property, access by permission only. I wasn't being cruel, I just wanted to make a point. For years, they'd enforced unnecessary rules and fines on everyone else. Now, they'd get a taste of their own medicine. The complaints started pouring in. Some people came to me directly, asking if they could still fish or swim. I told them they were welcome anytime, as long as they respected the space. Within days, families were enjoying the lake again, laughing, swimming, and relaxing like they hadn't done in years. Meanwhile, the HOA board crumbled under its own weight. Mrs. Tanner resigned a month later. 2 other board members followed. The HOA lost most of its influence, and by the end of the summer, the community voted to dissolve it entirely. It was poetic justice, quiet, clean, and completely legal. As the months passed, I invested in cleaning up the lakefront properly. I cleared debris, added benches, and built a small dock. It became the heart of the neighborhood once again, but this time, without the fear and control that had poisoned it before. Sometimes I'd see the old HOA president walking her dog near the street, avoiding eye contact. I never gloated, never taunted her. I didn't need to. The lake itself was the reminder, a mirror of calm water reflecting the truth that power doesn't come from rules, fines, or threats. It comes from ownership, knowledge, and the courage to stand your ground. Looking back, I realized the HOA's biggest mistake wasn't their arrogance or their fines, it was assuming that no one would ever question them. That blind confidence was what brought them down. As for me, I still visit the lake every morning. The same sunlight dances across the ripples, the same breeze moves through the trees, but now there's something different: silence. Not the tense kind that comes from fear, but the peaceful kind that comes from freedom. They called the cops on me for enjoying a lake they thought they owned. But in the end, I didn't just prove them wrong, I took back what they never truly had. And now, every time the water reflects the sky, I see it for what it is: not just a lake, but a reminder that sometimes, the quietest revenge is simply owning what they tried to take away.